Coming up, Zimbabwe Tzu Chi volunteers establish a community rehabilitation center to improve patients' health. Typhoon Haiyan survivors in the Philippines scavenge for usable building materials to repair their homes. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Helen Liao. Thank you for joining us. In June, Tzu Chi volunteers established a community rehabilitation center in Zimbabwe due to the need for such a facility. When the center first opened, there were only 5 patients, but now there are over 425 patients who regularly visit the clinic. Here's more. Here in Zimbabwe at Tzu Chi's Community Rehabilitation Center, a 6-year-old girl jumps around to show Tzu Chi volunteers her improvement.
When she first arrived at the rehabilitation center, she could only crawl. The physical therapist would massage her muscles, which would make the little girl cry out in pain. However, now she is able to walk.
Massaging the muscles in her arms, legs, back, and neck, these caresses help stimulate the young girl's mobility. Local residents are convinced it's magic. However, Tzu Chi volunteer Zhu Jincai insists it's the great love instead.
Ludo. You know Ludo? Yeah, because it's a Ludo, not a magic.
Due to impoverished conditions, some children in Zimbabwe are unable to receive vaccinations at a young age. To relieve the burden of the ailing, local volunteers attended a week of classes at the hospital to obtain a license to help others.
They told me training for one person costs $70. I said no worries, we need to do everything by the book.
In Zhu's heart, the intangible benefits of providing assistance through the rehab center outweighs the monetary cost of it all.
I'm deeply moved because we are creating opportunities for these people. It's not just, let me give you a massage. No, it's a chance for them to empathize with others, a chance to talk to one another and encourage each other. I feel like we are a middleman here, connecting people. So I say no problem, we welcome more patients to our center.
When the rehabilitation center opened in June, there were only a little over a dozen patients. However, during November, the number of patients was at 425 and continues to increase. Describing the clinic hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as working hours would do it a disservice, as there is more of a party atmosphere, where over 100 volunteers gather to prepare hot meals and visit neighbors. Here in Zimbabwe, Tzu Chi's great love is gradually taking root in local residents' hearts. In China, Tzu Chi volunteers are beginning their winter aid distribution in Yi County, Hebei Province. Before each distribution begins, a team of volunteers head to the venue to set up and cook hot porridge to warm the hearts as well as the body of the recipients. Upon seeing the smiles on the recipient's face, the hard work and effort put in by the volunteers is all worth it. The principal of Yi County's Qiyu Township Elementary School personally welcomes Tzu Chi volunteers at the door, as this is the first winter aid distribution to be held in Hebei Province, China this year.
You have traveled so far and prepared so much relief items for us, so at least we can supply the manpower to help. We are educators, so we can't just talk about helping, but we need to set an example as well.
你就带他们吧，你带他们去。那我就跟你。您跟着我一起。
Aid distribution tasks are sorted while volunteers do a warm-up exercise for the Qiyu residents who have arrived early. The relief items help recipients get through the cold winter days.
You guys are from Taiwan. I'm happy so many people are here to visit with me. I was so excited last night that I could not sleep.
Meanwhile, at another distribution event in Yi County, a 66-year-old grandmother woke up at 4 a.m. to attend the winter aid distribution.
The
items recipients received are laid out clear for each to see, as Tzu Chi's winter aid distribution has helped over 40,000 people throughout 21 regions in Yi County.
When Yi County residents needed help the most, Tzu Chi volunteers extended their love to us. It has been 5 years since they have helped our impoverished residents.
Receiving a letter from Master Zhen Yan, residents read it carefully, absorbing each word.
From today's orderly aid distribution, it's evident that residents' hearts are warmed. Love continues to spread from one person to another.
Volunteers also prepared hot porridge at each aid distribution to warm the hearts and stomachs of each recipient. Before each aid distribution, much preparation is needed. Although each greets one another with a good morning, the sun has yet to rise. Under the lingering moonlight, Tzu Chi volunteers get to work preparing for the day's event.
It's very joyful to be able to help others. As long as I have something to do, I'm glad to help.
Outside the venue is being set up by volunteers from Taiwan and China. For those who are inexperienced in decorating, they learn the ropes for more senior volunteers.
I need to learn all the little stuff so I can pass it on to others.
Not only helping out physically, but emotionally passing on Dharma to others as well.
The me before was very prideful, so in helping out others, I've learned to let go of my status, and it's most important to be humble.
We are here to wish you an early Happy New Year and send our blessings as we hope everyone has a good New Year.
The success of the winter aid distributions is clearly in all the heart and effort each volunteer put in. Whether they are from Taiwan or China, Tzu Chi volunteers are united with the common goal of helping to relieve the suffering of others.
After a recent aid distribution in Hebei's Yi County, Tzu Chi volunteers arrived at the town of Liangluozhuang to hold a free clinic and conduct home visitations. Thanks to volunteers' selfless dedication, local residents' hearts are filled with warmth and happiness. After a recent aid distribution in Hebei's Yi County, Tzu Chi volunteers traveled to the town of Liangluozhuang to visit some old friends. Grandma Zhou, who suffers from bronchitis, has been bedridden for 3 years. With the continuous changes in weather, the volunteers are extremely worried about her health condition.
Please remember to use the blanket if the weather is too cold, okay?
Other than caring for the senior couple, Tzu Chi volunteers also encourage Grandma Zhou to think good thought.
We need to think good thought. Let's tell the Buddha that you can regain your health and help those in greater need, okay?
要祝福你平安吉祥哈，他奶奶身体健康，好，好，一路平安，好，感恩。
Walking through a forest full of persimmon trees, the volunteers are greeted by local resident Wang Yongfu, who has been waiting anxiously for the volunteers' arrival.
福报大，有福气。
In spite of his old age, Wang Yongfu is still full of vitality.
以前你怎么追奶奶的？
如果我们没送，您没这米这面粉，那你平常过冬吃些啥？
也是吃这个，也都吃，买呗，花钱买呗，
自己买吧，
自己买呗。
自个儿买就不舍得下那么多米了呗。
对对对，
这喝粥很稀了吧？
对对对。
Meanwhile, the volunteers also held a free clinic at the Liangluozhuang High School to ensure the health of local residents.
I kept saying to the grandma that I am sorry that my hands are cold. They told me to carry on the procedure and kept thanking me for helping them. They also told me that their hands were also cold most of the time when they work.
Many local residents told me that they came to the free clinic because they trust us. That's why we can't let them down.
Thanks to home visitations and free clinic, local residents' hearts are now filled with warmth and happiness. Thanks to the success of Tzu Chi's Cash for Work program, many residents in Tacloban now have money to repair their homes. Unfortunately, some still can't afford to buy all the supplies they need and are forced to scavenge through trash for what they need.
This landfill in Tacloban reeks of foul odor. However, Mary and her 9-year-old son are rummaging through the refuse, looking for materials that they can use to repair their home.
My home has been damaged and there is no roof. Right now, I am using rice bags. I am worried that it will rain, so I am searching for wood to repair my roof.
Pinagpatong-patong lang namin yung sako.
Following their pair back to their beat-up home in the rural area, one sees a structure loosely built of bamboo and wood. The home is now slanted due to Typhoon Haiyan's powerful wind. The poor family of 5 lives in an area less than 6.6 square meters.
Before, when it rained, we all had to get up in a hurry and move to an area that didn't leak. Otherwise, we'd be soaked.
The presence of Tzu Chi volunteers draws out neighbors who want to personally express gratitude for Tzu Chi's Cash for Work program, which gave them the money needed to repair their homes. Erwin, who lives nearby, has to rebuild his total home from scratch. He is also scavenging for materials.
After it is repaired, 5 of us will live here. I'm still missing flooring and nails.
As more people begin to rebuild in Tacloban, hardware suppliers make sure they have enough nails to sell.
Before Tzu Chi's Cash for Work program was in place, no one bought nails. But now that the program is carried out, people have money again and can buy nails to repair their roof.
After homes are repaired and rebuilt, some sense of normalcy can finally return to the residents' lives.
Today, we take a closer look at how Typhoon Haiyan has traumatized children in the Philippines. According to UNICEF, 5.54 million children are affected by the disaster. Giving them a clean shelter, water, nutritious food, and a proper education are UN's top priority. It is also just as important for these children to remain as children, to have fun and play, so they can better cope with the trauma.
These children have just arrived in Manila from disaster areas.
No, very few things from the house, yes.
Typhoon Haiyan did not leave them with much to carry, and worse, they do not know when they can continue going to school. 7,000 schools are closed due to the storm. Many preschool children have taken shelter inside tents set up by UNICEF.
Stand up, feet together, dikit lang tingin. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Young girl met with 8 years old, lost 20 of her classmates and friends. I mean, how do you process that?
UNICEF specifically works on creating child-friendly spaces for children to get psychosocial support so they can play and be children while they're in this precarious situation.
5.54 million children are affected by the disaster, of which 1.4 million are forced to relocate.
We're working with the government and partners to respond in the areas of water, sanitation, hygiene, nutrition, education.
UNICEF is focusing its current effort on long-term recovery. By May of next year, $61.5 million are expected to be spent on disaster relief. At the request of the Philippine government, WHO has spent $2 million on vaccines to prevent measles and polio outbreaks.
It's very important to make sure we prevent any measles outbreaks. Also, polio has been eradicated in the Philippines, and we want to make sure that it doesn't come back.
Dr. Tsai Wenxing has just returned from the disaster areas. To her surprise, she discovered that most of the victims seem to be quite optimistic in spite of what has happened.
Perhaps due to their optimistic nature, they are recovering from the disaster better than we expected. After receiving the aid, their optimism and grateful nature are helping them cope with the trauma.
Though Dr. Tsai did not discover any children suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder in the free clinics that she helped out with, she still worries that the symptoms will surface if recovery does not begin quickly.
If a year later they still have problems dealing with the trauma, they will exhibit various behaviors. These include acting more alarmed when interacting with people or even refraining from human interactions. Or perhaps they will have trouble focusing on a task. So I suggest that the schools should try to reopen as soon as possible.
The temporary learning spaces that we're putting in place, we're hoping to work with government so that this will improve the attendance in the future, to make sure that children don't miss out on their learning.
With the UN's assistance, the local Ministry of Education plans to reopen schools in the disaster areas in 4 stages. Some schools should be open by early December, while the rest should open by next January.
In order to prepare hot meals for Typhoon Haiyan survivors in Tacloban, Tzu Chi volunteers rely on gas ovens powered by propane. However, often in a disaster area, access to natural gas may be cut off, and for such occasion, Tzu Chi uses a rocket oven modified by Taiwan's Industrial Technology Research Institute. Here's more.
As natural gas and gas ovens may not be easily accessible in a disaster area, Tzu Chi has come up with a solution: a mobile rocket oven that is fueled by wood.
This way it can cook longer. If the materials are loose and you don't compress them, there will be less to burn.
Any dried branches, leaves, or unwanted wood can power the oven. Based on the design of ovens in the old days, the rocket oven utilizes the chimney effect to quickly boil water and cook rice without electricity or natural gas. The Tzu Chi version maximizes efficiency.
This is easier on the person who cooks. It doesn't give off excess heat and the temperature rises pretty quickly. It boils water quickly. I think it's not the same as a gas oven.
This portable oven played a vital role during Tzu Chi's relief efforts during Japan's 3/11 disaster 2 years ago, and will continue to benefit victims in disaster areas in the future.
In the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan, Tzu Chi volunteers have arrived in Tacloban City to help. In our next report, we'll meet Tzu Chi volunteer Chen Jinghai, who is a member of the first disaster relief team to enter Tacloban City.
3 weeks into the relief mission in Tacloban, to say that no one is tired would be a lie. Thankfully, Tzu Chi volunteer Chen Jinghai's massage skills can provide immediate physical relief.
The Philippine volunteers are so willing to serve others, and everyone is giving it their all, as there is a lot of work to be done. Despite being physically exhausted, they persevere. Their spirit is something we global Tzu Chi volunteers should take after.
Known as one of the biggest disasters of the century, the havoc Typhoon Haiyan brought in its wake requires the people's combined efforts to overcome. With many years of experience in disaster relief work, Chen Jinghai joined this relief mission to the Philippines.
As the Cash for Work program continues, disaster survivors are slowly walking out of despair and are becoming more optimistic. It is as if they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, which in turn has made us feel hopeful as well.
An experienced international relief volunteer, Chen has seen much during his relief missions. Yet, seeing the helplessness in the survivors' eyes in Tacloban, all he could think about is how to do more for the residents.
A child around the same age as my grandson, about 3 or 4 years old, came and asked us very politely for a bowl of instant rice. We quickly brought out a bowl of rice for him. When he was ready to leave, I filled 2 bowls and a bag all with instant rice for him to take home. Seeing him leave, I almost couldn't hold back my tears. Compared to the disaster survivors, we are very blessed, but in fact, they are our mentors.
Usually in charge of overseeing general matters, this time around, Chen provides his help and expertise wherever and whenever possible. He also shares his past experiences with his fellow volunteers.
In the recovery work following the AA floods in Taiwan, when we reached a certain point in our cleanup, we took a few days off so that the trucks can clear out the roads and remove the debris.
Although Chen has already left Tacloban, his heart remains with the disaster survivors, having transformed his empathy for the survivors into his sincerest blessings.
These disaster survivors have very pure hearts. What they truly need is encouragement and blessings from all over the world. With this support, I believe very soon they will walk out of the clouds of despair to greet a better tomorrow.
To further the recovery work in Tacloban of the Philippines, Tzu Chi volunteer Yang Guoying managed to borrow heavy vehicles to help clear away debris on the streets. In addition, he also asked his friends to ship the money for the cash for work programs to Tacloban from Cebu.
Standing on the dock, Tzu Chi volunteer Yang Guoying patiently waits for the arrival of a shipment of heavy vehicles. This is the second time Yang brings in heavy equipment to help Tacloban's recovery work.
军容重大哎，师伯，真的很不容易哎。25台，快，师伯看起来很满意。
Having been involved in the trade of heavy machinery for years, Yang Guoying has also been a Tzu Chi volunteer for 16 years. In the wake of the devastation of Typhoon Haiyan, he once again contributes his love and compassion to help the disaster survivors.
Too many natural disasters in the Philippines. Poor Filipinos. We need to hurry up. We need to do as much as possible to help the needy.
At each large-scale relief effort, Yang's presence can always be found at disaster areas. This time, he not only managed to bring in heavy vehicles, but also asked his friend to help with the shipment of Tzu Chi's monetary aid.
The captain says he knows well that his mission is to help people. This is already his second trip. We gave him a Tzu Chi flag to hang on his ship the last time. We now call this the Tzu Chi ship.
With the assistance of heavy equipment, the streets of Tacloban were soon cleaned up. Seeing the cleanup progress on the streets, Yang is all smiles.
This is what we do. We feel happy to see a little improvement.
Next, Yang will continue to help local schools complete the installation of Tzu Chi's prefabricated classrooms.
中间是就起来之后就是一个广场。
He wants to give the youngsters a place to continue their studies without worries.
Look, her eyebrows are so long. This girl is very pretty. As Master Zhenyan's disciples, we have to complete Tzu Chi's missions on her behalf. We cannot stop.
Making disaster relief work a priority, Yang Guoying gives his all to Tzu Chi's missions. In turn, he also benefits from receiving countless blessings and wisdom.
We go to the United States at the end of the show to help Typhoon Haiyan survivors in the Philippines. Las Vegas Tzu Chi volunteers canvassed for donation at the local blind center, while Tzu Chi care recipients in New York kindly donated their love to show their support. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you for watching DaAi Headlines. Goodbye.